Good evening, then, ladies and gentlemen across the world. Welcome aboard to the Paradox Series. This is TPS, and we are coming at you live once again from the Singapore circuit, the Marina Bay circuit, and it is going to be a very, very interesting scenario indeed. It is myself, Jota, alongside Brett Norman. Thank you very much for being alongside me for this one. We are going to be in for a very, very tasty event ahead of us, I think. After what was a very tumultuous Japanese Grand Prix, we are now heading in with the Paradox Series. And more specifically, the hosts themselves, Paradox Sim Racing, they are struggling. They're coming off the back of a very poor result in Japan. VSR coming on the back of a very, very good performance themselves. We're going to be in for a bit of a tasty one here in the southern Asian city in Singapore.
Yep. Good evening, Jota. Thank you for having me. We are back after a few weeks of irregular commentary duos. I believe it was Austria. We had yourself and Oliver Loveland, and then last week it was PSR Wexrow and Loveland. But your regular duo are back this evening for what should be a very entertaining Singapore Grand Prix. Obviously, Singapore in real life as well, it's had its highlights, most notably when you enter into turn one. I think our minds all go back to 2017 with Vettel, Verstappen and Raikkonen colliding before turn one and all getting out of the race there. Very unfortunate freeway incident, and we hope that we won't see anything like that this evening. But a couple of drivers just setting some installation laps on for intermediates at the moment, just so they can ensure that all their racing equipment is working. I know a few people have had a few wheel issues recently due to the state of the game, so just going out on the inters just to make sure everything's working, they've got their force feedback, etc. But yeah, it should be a really entertaining Singapore Grand Prix. Two drivers missing this evening, one for ETA not being submitted, and Novus Racing serving a race ban following Rev Caterpillar's incident last race. So it's just Amine for Novus tonight, and I believe it is Quantum on his own for ETA. We are just waiting for CRT Archie, who is the 18th driver, to join, but it'll be interesting to see what sort of strategies occur tonight. Obviously, Singapore, a track that does take a lot of life out of the tyres, so I think it is a dead cert hard medium this evening. But quite a few drivers using the new update to their advantage with the option of, you can choose your own tyre strategy now, whereas with the previous updates you couldn't have that many. And I think that's all for notices I've got to go through, so I'll hand it back over to you.
So we are into Q1 then. We've just got a little bit under 4 minutes gone in this session, 14 minutes left in the session, and as you rightfully point out, I think the medium hard strategy is going to be the way to go. Obviously a few notices, as you rightfully point out. Obviously we're missing a few of the drivers down to 17 as it stands. Hopefully an 18th will be joining us a little bit later on in this session, as we're just on board with HSR Grunty as he's now heading through down the straight. That's his very minor straight, to be honest with you as well. That'll be one of the last times that we see this layout, of course. We've got plenty of league racing left on this game, but of course as of next year, this corner that Grunty is going to be approaching will be non-existent. We'll be heading straight down that escape road and what will be a straight down towards the stadium section, which I think is going to be one that's going to be very tasty indeed. As we're just seeing the chat starting to light up with a few drivers. Matthew saying hola, and Jacob saying Rev Robbed. I'm unfortunately out of the loop on what happened at Japan. I think I've got to go on my next round to thank all of the support from the esports community around the board as Grunty comes across the line with a 42-0, but he was weaving as he comes across the start-finishing line, so a little bit more time to find you'd expect. Big thank you to all of the esports drivers and esports teams across the esports world after what has been a bit of a unfortunate set of circumstances health-wise for myself over the last couple of weeks, and slowly but surely getting on the mend as I return back to the commentary box. So thank you for everyone's patience as I slowly get that little bit better. Clone Troop though coming across the line for St George Esports, 143.7 for him, with McCabe Sam on his return here for St George Esports with a 144.1. I think some initial lap times coming in on those intermediate lap times, but the first of those starting on the dry tyres, it is FRA Plaque with a 138.4. Not the best Japanese Grand Prix for FRA either, actually. It's all about VSR climbing to second in the standings as we take a look at those standings, actually, and so far looking very promising indeed. Paradox Sim Racing are coming off of the back of some really poor performances across the esports spectrum, Brett, and only getting the 2 points last week. Visceral getting 43 puts him now into second place as Fury's now beat down to third. Shizou now up to fourth after getting a good chunk of points as well, but CRT 26 points really needed. They're now up to seventh.
Yeah, I mean, it is unfortunate when you do look at the standings, because tonight will be ET8's final race in the Paradox series, due to this being their third strike of only fielding one driver. So I'll be interested to see what team comes in to replace them over for break week period, and I believe we head to Australia straight after for break week. Yes, we do, on the 17th of November. So it'll be interesting to see what occurs there. But as you do look at the standings, St George's Esports, a team that was, flying high in second, the team that we thought were best of the rest, when Paradox were just running away with it. They've had a few poor races recently. Obviously, that reliable duo of McCabe Sam and Jam Pancakes got altered because I believe McCabe Sam was having a cruise. He was on the high seas, so it meant that the likes of Clone Troop and GC were able to have a run out for St George that it seems to just knock them off their game a little bit. So we'll be interested to see what McCabe Sam can do on his return this evening. And I mean, obviously, we've seen for performances from him thus far. He was leading for Drivers' Championship for a while until LCR Leopard and VSR Smokey have overtaken him in recent weeks. But for St George's, I feel like tonight will be a good night for them to bounce back going into next week with the break week coming up.
Naturally, as you see PSR Nick come across the line, he's going to start his lap now with the first lap coming in from the Paradox Sim Racing team. They're coming off of the back, as I said, of a bit of poor performance, actually. Not just within TPS, but I think around the esports world at the moment. They are struggling out there at the moment, are the PSR team. So it's going to be interesting to see how they can challenge what is a very tricky track at the best of times, actually, in Singapore, as they now head down the DRS straight, not straight actually, but it is a straight, not straight, if you will, as he now heads into the internal section. Now obviously things are going to get pretty intense and pretty tight for racing, and looks like he's going in for the wider entry, and that's exactly what I expected, as he now gets close to the wall but keeps it out. And Nick is hoping, you'd have to say, to try and get in and around FRA Plaque's pace and at least try and put up a little bit of a challenge here, because they are at risk of losing this championship here if they keep on with these poor performances, as he now heads across the bridge.
Yeah, obviously PSR, another team like St George's, who want to put in a strong performance tonight. And that's not to say anyone wants to put in a weak performance, but Marina Bay, it can be so difficult to hook up a lap, and especially in the race, you've got to get into such a rhythm where you've just got to feel at one with the car that you're driving. Set up strategy is so important around a track like Singapore. You want just enough downforce to keep your car in a straight line, and you just want to feel like you're able to put the throttle down and not spin out if possible. PSR Nick there with 37.6, so very good time flexing his muscles there on the medium tyres. There's a lot more drivers look for the softs, and there's Levi. So putting their demons to bed straight away in qualifying a PSR with some very good representative lap times right off the bat on the medium tyres. So a potential, I mean, not to say those tyres will definitely get them through. They might, because they are two very good lap times, don't get me wrong. But could this just be a strategy from PSR to go full send into Q2 and Q3 on their compounded tyres?
Initial medium tyre laps coming in for Q1, as well as just keeping an eye on FRA Logic as he's now heading around the final couple of corners, penultimate corner before the final corner, coming at you very quickly indeed around Singapore as he looks like he needs to have a couple of bites of the cherry before losing the rear. He'll come across the line in P3, and to be honest with you, he was looking set to try and beat PSR Nick, but that final third sector was well down, and I put that all down to that final couple of corners, which just looked a little bit sheepish for the FRA team. ET8 Quantum on their final outing, unless someone comes out of nowhere for the team. Quantum setting the fastest lap time so far with a 37.3 of his own, but on the soft tyre in comparison to those behind on the medium and intermediate tyre, as we're just keeping an eye out on HSR Amine as he's now just going on an outlap at the moment. Is the Novus, the Alpine rather, as they now got keep an eye on the Red Bull. Fresh livery, of course, now a slightly darkened livery versus the original blue that was on there on that particular occasion, as Bobberts, the host of this lobby, setting apparently the fastest second sector so far, but he is on the soft tyre, so he could be challenging Quantum as he now heads into the final, into the next set of corners, of course, before heading into the final selection of corners. The CRT team coming off the back of a very good performance in Japan, and I'm sure Bobberts will be very happy indeed to continue on with that form. Will the number 8 Red Bull find a couple of corners then for the Red Bull, as he will be looking to try and set the initial pace on these soft tyres, and then coming around the final corner and looking a lot cleaner than Logic did as he comes across the line with a 36.9.
Yeah, very good lap time there from Bobberts, flying for flag for CRT, I believe. Don't hold my word as gospel, but Bobberts has been one of those drivers that has competed in virtually every race this season for CRT. So a reliable performer. We've seen him put in some very good performances. My mind immediately goes back to Italy, Monza, where we thought he could potentially be a shock winner until that late safety car came out and helped FRA Stonks win for race. A late substitute for FRA tonight with Logic replacing Stonks, I believe. Stonks feeling a bit under for weather, so our best wishes go out to Stonks and hope he makes a full recovery from his illness quite soon, because he is a very good driver, an exciting driver to watch out on track. Is Stonks, obviously. It's well shown through his results this season in the Paradox Series and in WR Tier 2. But Shizuka Piccolo, not often a man you see hitting for heights in qualifying, but a 36.5 at the moment for him. Very good from him. And M Racer by 7 milliseconds for Visceral Racing gets P1 there. RP1 Varane, a newcomer, an emergency transfer there from Roleplay 1 for French Giants, putting himself into P4 whilst his teammate Montoya served their qualifying ban that they received from Japan, and I believe that was McCabe Sam going P5. No, it wasn't. Oh God, who was that? It was Clone Troop. It was his Haas teammate going into P7.
Yeah, McCabe Sam currently out at the moment in the third sector, as WR Smokey very slow indeed, actually, as apparently he's just hovering around the circuit in neutral at the moment, as I believe he's trying to burn fuel, or maybe he's overfueled ever so slightly in his Q1 session. On medium tyres was his, well, but it did come out on a set of medium tyres, but he's now currently on a set of soft tyres as he now heads around the final couple of corners. It's an important lap, this one, for VSR, because in the few races that I've seen VSR, they've been a little bit tumultuous when it comes to qualifying. One making a mistake somehow in the unusual fashion of not seeing the two drivers hug each other. Either way, one of the VSR drivers is the fastest at the moment with that 36.571. Smokey just about to start his lap now on a fresh set of soft tyres, and this offers an opportunity for us to discuss strategy, actually. Already some people deciding to go for the strategy that gives them the extra set of medium tyres in the race, so a potential two-stop opportunity for a medium hard medium, maybe even a medium soft medium if anyone wants to try that particular risk. But either way, the potential is there for a two-stop race, though we are expecting a solid one-stop hard, medium, medium, hard, as we see WR Smoking now just coming around the first sector, looking relatively clean so far, but not the fastest first sector of anyone so far.
Yes, Smokey, who'll want to put himself, alongside his teammate M Racer there. As I mentioned previously in the stream, he is P2 in the driver's standings with Visceral Racing. Obviously, he had a short 1-2 race stint with WOR when they were in the Paradox series, so he's obviously picked up points from there as well. But with M Racer just retiring from the session there, Purple Sector 2 on my screen, 103.762 for Smokey. We'll be interested to see how he comes to the next set of corners. Lots of rights and lefts into the base section of the track. Turns 18, 19. Takes very nicely. Don't want to put the power down too early as you enter into turns 20 and 21. Very good exit for him, maximising as much as possible, going through the double left-hander of turns 22 and 23. What can Smokey do? It's provisional pole position in Q1 for VSR Smokey. A very good lap time from him. A lot of drivers in for 136.5s, but it all matters. Every millisecond counts.
Yeah, that's continuing on with VSR's performance actually throughout this last couple of races, taking the most amount of points of any team down in Japan, and now they are at the front so far and looking like to be the team to beat. As it stands, WR Smokey managing to beat M Racer, his teammate, by just a little bit under 600ths of a second. So it is him from M Racer, Piccolo, followed by Placky, and then Bobbers rounding out the top 5. As it stands though, bottom 2, one of them being RP1 Montoya, who's not going to be competing in this qualifying session. Down in 17th place he is out, and then it will be, as it stands at least, HSR Grunty knocked out of qualifying for the Team Artemis team at the moment. JTO40 just in front of him now as well in 15th place. Artemis a little bit of time to find here if they want to pose a challenge in this qualifying session, but all of the drivers currently shockingly down at the back at the moment. It is about FRA Logic. He is also really struggling down in 14th at the moment, and one of the PSR drivers, Nick, in 13th at risk of not getting through Q2 with that 37.6, and his teammate Levi only just sneaking through to Q3 as it stands at the moment with that 37.3. Plenty of time to go though, but as it stands at the moment, the front runners are still struggling.
Yeah, Grunty, I mean, he got provisional pole at the start of the session, so it's gone from hero to zero, but hopefully he can set a lap that will put him into Q2. Obviously, Nick, he set that first lap on the mediums. We thought it'd be a very good lap on the mediums and that a lot of drivers would follow him on the medium tyres, but no, they've all elected for the softs. Majority of the grid has retired at the end of Q1. Be interested to see whether CRT Archie gets in the next couple of minutes. Otherwise, it'll look like Continental are only running with one this evening, which will hurt them a lot. It'll leave Bobberts on his own this race, and that is something that you don't want. You just want to be a cohesive unit as a team and be able to have that ability to rely on your teammate when you have a spin, that he can go forth and, pick up some healthy points for the team. But it's going to be quite difficult for him this evening. Obviously, the same applies for HSR Amine and ET8 Quantum, both missing their teammates this evening due to differing reasons. But for Artemis at the moment, they are looking on the cusp of getting knocked out in Q1 there with JT, who's put in a sterling performance in the past 2 rounds at Austria and Japan. He's gotten top 10 finishes back to back. I believe he got P7 and P6. So it's sort of like I believe it was Carlos Sainz at his qualifying positions in Mexico, where JT is just going to go P7, P6. I'm not a gambling man myself, but there's potential for him to get P5 today, so I'm not saying place the house on it, but FRA Logic going P4 there. Don't put the house on it, but the odds would be good on it. I'm just going to put that out there. End of Q1 has applied, so the checkered flag is out. Grunty's coming through turn 21 there. Good exit for him. Coming through turn 22 and 23 now, takes a lot of the inside curb. What can HSR Grunty do? He does improve on his time by 3.5 seconds, but it is P16 for him, unfortunately. JTO40, he is a 10th down on his time at the moment. Is the Artemis driver having a bit of a rough couple of turns there, 16 and 17 into 18 and 19. Now We'll see what he can do. PSR Nick as well. He's coming through turns 18 and 19 as well. Levi just pulling into the pits there. He will not be continuing. And JT pulling into the pits as well. So I believe it's just Grunty and Montoya. And that will be leaving us this session as Mercedes now, I believe, was Shazoo Venom moves himself up to P5.
PSR Nick coming into the pits then off of the soft tyres that he was setting a lap on, but in the end decided not to push on and perhaps hiding and perhaps sandbagging PSR's pace around here. And Miane manages to sneak in despite invalidating his final lap as well. So it's all going to be about what is going to happen in Q2 then. We've lost, obviously, Grunte and Montoya. JTO Forte is going to be wondering where he can find the extra pace for Artemis at the moment, because they are well down the field compared to everyone else at the moment, with the PSR boys obviously not really reflective of their pace as well. They're hiding it, so it's going to be interesting to see what the rest of the pace of the other drivers is going to be like as we now head into Q2, which is where I think people are going to start removing the sandbags from their cars. Either way, no sandbags in the Ferraris at the moment, as VSR will be very happy to hear that it's a 1-2 as it stands going into Q2. Smokey leading the way from Emracer, Piccolo in third with Logic in fourth and Venom in fifth. Plaki is in sixth with Quantum in seventh, Boberts in eighth with Varan in ninth for RP1, and Sam McCabe and Clone Troop, the two particularly fan favourites for the team, fan favourite team of St George Esports in 10th and 11th respectively. Levi gets into PSR with PSR and Nick also in his 14th, splitting them. It's Charamine for Nova sit in the Alpine, and then of course JTO 40 just getting in but well down the field by over 6/10 of a second to Nick. Grunty and Montoya, the two drivers out of Q1. We head through then to Q2. Of course, the bottom 5 below 10th place will be knocked out of this event, and it would be the original point where we would say it's all going to be talking about strategy. But of course, that rule no longer applies in this game, so we're now going to start to see a bunch of people on soft tyres all going to be showing the actual pace that they've got. I know that Nick found 6.5 in the second sector alone on that original run before he bailed on it, so he's definitely got a lot more pace out there, but he wasn't matching with the likes of VSR out there. So though PSR might have a little bit of pace to find, they're not showing the fastest out there on the at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, Q1, it's like, as you said, a lot of drivers sandbagging there, and their true pace will want to be revealed in Q2 as they try to reach Q3. PSR Levi, one of those drivers that has benefited from his strategy in Q1 of just using for medium compounder tyres. So it'll be interesting to see what he could produce for Paradox and flex his muscles with his soft pace. Same with PSR Nick. So both Paradox drivers, they've got some pace in their hand, but they're ready to show what they've got yet in their first hot laps of Q2. We will have to wait and see. But for now, I mean, there's not a lot to really talk about for the moment in terms of what can happen this race. Obviously, Paradox, they have had a poor couple of races, but they do still have that 47-point lead at the top of the table. And if Visceral put a 43-point race in like they did last time, showing their Q1 pace, that lead could be cut very quickly, and it could lead to a very exciting final 4 or 5 races in this tournament. As I mentioned previously in the stream, we do have the break week, so there'll be no race from us on the 10th of November, but we do return on the 17th of November when we head to Australia, and then it is a North America doubleheader where we head to Miami and then Mexico City on the 1st of December, and then we head to Brazil for the penultimate race of the season on the 8th of December, and we round out the season like we would in real life round Abu Dhabi for Yas Marina circuit on the 15th of December. So that's a reason to stay tuned to the Paradox series and to keep your finger on the pulse of what is going on, because situations change very quickly. Obviously, mentioned earlier about ET8, this being their final race potentially, so it'll be interesting to see what a new coming team will do, if there was a new coming team to come into play for the final 5 races, and how high they can climb up the standings in this great tournament.
Very, very interesting to say the least as we now head on into this Q2 session, of course. We'll talk about the season ahead of us, but we do have one race to run here in Singapore, and at the moment looking very, very feisty indeed, as we just watched McCabe Sam starting his lap and then getting a massive tank slapper going through turn 5, and that pretty much ended his run on that particular occasion, and it looks like he was given a nice toe to Bobbers, but unfortunately caught him as he was leaving the pit lane, so that was no run here, and no run here either for Clone Troopers. He invalidates his fast lap as well, so both St. George Esports drivers heading into Q2 immediately struggling out of the block, as we're just watching one of the PSR drivers in Nick leaving the pit lane. He's getting his race underway, and with this Q2 session here, the number 66 will be looking to try and find a little bit more pace that he would have had in Q1. He elected not to show or flex his muscles entirely in that Q1 session, but I'm expecting that there will be significantly faster laps from the PSR team as they head through into this Q2 session, as we're just following JTO40, the sole Artemis driver, as he now heads off of the bridge and down the straight.
Yeah, so, I mean, with Singapore, you have to do a little bit of research to find out, you know, in terms of distance of the track. McCabe Sam with a whopping 51.005 there, setting himself P1. That will obviously be beaten for the rest of the drivers coming round to set their hot laps. But much to my surprise when doing my track analysis, that we do have some corner names around Singapore. So we do have turns 18 and 19, which I've already mentioned, for base section of the track. There's no real names for turns 22 and 23, just for double left-hander as we come into shears for turn 1. If we do stay on board with JTO40 for this hot lap of his for sole Artemis driver, so comes through shears now. I'm probably mispronouncing that a lot, but apologies. I'm only a humble commentator trying to get by in life. So he comes onto the DRS, not straight here, as he will approach turn 6 now, then into turn 7, Memorial Corner. Be interested to see how he takes it. Takes it very nicely. Harsh braking zone, third gear taken for JTO40, reaching a lower speed of 49 miles an hour as he comes into Padang of turn 9, and he'll come through for old Singapore sling of turns 10 and now 11. Has to open up the steering a little bit there so he doesn't cut the curb too much. There we have the tight left-hand hairpin here. Takes a lot of inside curve there. Gets the power down nice and early for JT, making sure he doesn't spin, coming up to the Sec 2 time allowance of 104.891, coming into turn 14 Connaught, and he'll come down to turn 15. Then turn 16 and 17. Nicely done from JT, gently applying for throttle through those two corners, comes into bay now. Very nicely done from JT. It'll be interesting to see where this lap time will put him. Flying the flag for the Green Army Artemis this evening. What can he do? Takes a lot of inside curb on turn 22, but it's P7 for JT for slowest of runners that have set a lap time in Q2 at the moment.
Yeah, slowest, unfortunately, with that 38.0, with a little bit more pace to find, but it's unfortunate for Artemis at the moment. It looks like the two drivers that represented them not showing the most amount of pace that they could, perhaps Singapore not being a strong circuit for the team, as we just keep an eye out and see how the sole ET8 driver on their final outing will be, because we've got no indication that we're going to have another ET8 driver joining us by the looks of things, as we've actually lost a driver in the wall. It's one of the Alpines, I believe it is RP1 Varane, who's put it in the wall on his own accord on his outlap, so I expect he's probably going to have to come in and get that front wing changed now, as we just watch ET8 Quantum as he comes across to start his lap now. And you know what, it's a real shame for Quantum as well, because Quantum is definitely one of the fastest drivers ET8 have actually got in their arsenal, and they are going to miss out big time on having Quantum not really showing the muscle of ET8 being in TPS, if indeed they are only going to be fielding him, because of course if that is it for ET8, you know, Quantum is going to be missing out some really, really good track time, and I expect, really, it's not really what he's going to be searching for in a team.
Yeah, I mean, in the F1 community over the past few days, we've seen Jack Taylor move from ETA to Novus Racing. So signs of uncertainty for ETA at the moment. And they've already used their emergency transfer. They have 3 drivers on their roster that are still with the team. Obviously, I mentioned Jack is no longer with the team, and Sam, one of the co-owners of Velox, who ETA acquired to join TPS, he is left as well, alongside for likes of Matty Torley and VLX Harris, a driver that was, he was hitting real good heights. Was Harris really making for community stand up and take notice of him, but he's decided to go into retirement, and that's been a trend that we've seen with quite a few drivers this game, unfortunately. One driver that hasn't gone into retirement and has instead taken for limelight from those who have gone into retirement is PSR Levi, a very outstanding driver in WR Tier 2, going P1 there with a 36-1. And if I was Levi, he did 1 lap on the mediums in Q1 and then retired. And I reckon he can just do that 1 lap on the soft compounder tyres and call it a day for his Q2 section. His teammate Nick, though, he still has a lot of time to find. P6 at the moment, which is good on paper, but for a driver like Nick, you'd expect P4 to be the bar that he is setting for himself. So for PSR at the moment, Nick, he's in a little bit of a lingo zone. Limbo, I meant to say, not lingo. I've clearly been watching too much daytime TV as he just gets out of the way there from Mercedes by taking the escape road. Very nicely done. Using the escape road full effect and ensuring that he doesn't harm any drivers on their laps. Back to the ET8 situation. I have seen they have made a couple of acquisitions in the past 2 days, but they've just not been mentioned on their social media. They've signed Liam Hardman, former Novus Racing and Total Impact Racing driver, as a no assist acquisition for them, and also Steve F1, a driver that has experience with the Future Racing team and FGE, has departed them to join ET8. But at the end of the day, you ask what for? FGE are in the Legacy division for WOR, and they're doing well. They've got some decent drivers in their ranks. Obviously, Baldwin Boy stands out as a very good no-assist driver with former PSR pedigree. So it begs the question, why would you move to ET8 when there is such uncertainty? And, whether there's their Xbox side, it just hasn't really been looked upon, because when you go onto social media, I had to search through social media to find out that Steve and Liam were drivers for ET8, and just makes you question whether the higher ups at ET8, have both eyes fully focused on their Xbox division, or whether their acquisition of Velox was just purely a short-term move and not a long-term one.
Keeping an eye on what's happening on track at the moment, as we're just keeping a firm eye on the situation for RP1 Varane. Of course, on his original outlap, he did unfortunately put it in a wall, so he needed to get a new front wing on there, and he's getting a little bit of pickup, but he has now used his final set of fresh soft tyres, as far as I'm aware, to try and get a lap in, so he's not looking to try and challenge for, you'd expect anyway, a top sort of position in Q3 if indeed he does manage to get through, and it's going to be a particularly tricky scenario for Varane, that you'd have to say, if he does manage to get in. Shazoo, by the way, is struggling a little bit here, 9th and 11th respectively, so one of their drivers would be knocked out, split by PSR Nick, who is still yet to leave the pit lane. Got a little bit of time to get out there and have another go, though. He's down in 10th as it stands, and McCabe Sam also struggling for St. George Esports, but Clone Troop very happy at the moment with P6, but he's only separated by Boberts by 24 thousandths of a second as his teammate comes across the line and hugs his teammate by 1,000th of a second for 6th and 7th respectively. So interesting scenario. FRA 4th, 5th, and you've got St. George 6th and 7th. It is a VSR 1-3, PSR managing to snag second place as it stands, but his teammate, though, Levi's teammate Nick, is going to be out of Q2 as it stands, and he's not going to get through to Q3 with that 1 minute 37.0 cut-off point 36.9.
Yeah, I did mention earlier on in the session about how that lap time for Nick could put him on the cusp, and that he should have been setting his standard for a P4. Driver that is very good in qualifying, and NDR sole runner tonight, Hate Armine, the Belgian hero. He's just coming around to start lap here. And one thing that Singapore, we have already mentioned tonight about strategies when it comes to tyres, is how much of an effect it can have on tyre life. So the drivers who are in the bottom 5 at the moment, it's sort of this effect of, do you push too hard and risk an invalidation on tyres that won't be able to go again, because these softs are essentially a 1 lap run tyre. You can't really put in a masterful lap. Levi being an outlier, obviously, with those 2 lap softs put in P2. Through personal experience around Singapore, the softs have not been a viable tyre and only a very good qualifying tyre. And there we are. Amine has invalidated his lap coming through turn 10 there, the former Singapore Sling. And I mean, it's the effect that I've spoken about how these tyres, they might not be good to go for a second lap. He just gets out of the way for the Alfa Romeo Wallen car of VTX Quantum, as for AM JT040 Aston Martin Cognizant Aramco car goes past him as we enter sector 3. But I think that is Amine's qualifying done. 1 minute left in the session. McCabe Sam has retired in the pit lane. He is on the cusp, McCabe Sam, pending drivers improving their laps. Obviously, he's happy with his lap time. He feels he can't go any better, and obviously he couldn't go out and set another lap. So yeah, it's... Oh, no, that is big. Pearson Nick has left the session, so he will not progress into Q3. Connection issues hampering Nick there, and we will only be seeing one Paradox driver in Q3.
To be fair, Nick was on 2-lap-old soft tyres as well, so I think even if he didn't disconnect, I think it would be very unlikely he'd have been able to get through, because those tyres are going to be breaching in and around 10% by the time he finishes the lap. So Varane is making a valiant effort to cut corners to try and get into Q3, but unfortunately his race in qualifying is going to be all but done for now. Will the RP1 driver be losing the other RP1 driver, of course, as he has out-qualified his teammate who did not qualify. Venom on a hot lap at the moment, looking to try and improve if he can. He's a little bit up in the first sector at the moment. Amine is also a little bit up in the first sector as well, but he is going to be putting Piccolo under a little bit of pressure himself, invalidating his lap, and it makes no difference anyway. It makes no odds because he was 14 thousandths down in the first sector anyway. So that is Piccolo's qualifying over and done with. Quantum was up in the second sector, but he's invalidated as well. Bobbert's also invalidating. Clone Troop also invalidated as well as he finished. So a bunch of drivers all in the top 10 all invalidating, is offering opportunities here for those outside of the top 10 to now qualify. Nick obviously disconnecting, he's out of qualifying, but Venom could be in the possibility of a driving seat position to out-qualify his teammate and knock him out of Q2. And we'll see as he now heads around the sort of 90-degree corners, and he's obviously struggling a little bit around here. It looks like pad sort of controller here driving for Venom as he now approaches the final couple of corners. The double left-hander as he comes across the line, and he does knock out his teammate out of Q2 as he now goes up to 5th. Amine comes across the line, and he just misses out and finishes in 11th in this position as Piccolo has spun. In shocking circumstances, his teammate has knocked him out. Venom 5th, Piccolo 12th.
Yeah, unfortunate for 2 big hitters in qualifying going out in Q2 is obviously Shizu Piccolo and Pearson Nick. Have sent out an invite to Nick, so hopefully he will be back in the session in time for the race, but he might just choose to take 12 minutes out and just get used to race conditions, just go into a Grand Prix mode potentially, just see how it feels. Unfortunate there for JT040, P15 and P16. Artemis will be starting tonight. Obviously not a strong track for boys in green, but oh, there is CRT Archie. So he's arrived, but a bit late for Archie, unfortunately. I don't know whether this game works the same as in if you're not in by the end of Q1, it will not put you in a car. I'm aware because haven't had that situation before. So it'll be interesting whether Archie can take control of that second Red Bull. It would obviously help out his teammate Bobberts a lot, but For Q2, it is VSR on top again with that 1-3 M Racer taking P1 with Smokey at P3. PSR Levi for Soul. PSR running now in P2. F-Ray Logic there with his teammate Placky both into Q3. St George's Esports, they're both into Q3 as well. A good bouncing back for Clone Trooper McCabe Sam. Bobbits and Quantum rounding out for top 10. And obviously Shazoo Venom for Pad Driver in P5.
I'm under the impression that the CRT Archie will be in the Red Bull. They get automatically put in what the highest place car is. Red Bull, obviously both Mercedes are taken, both Ferraris are taken, so it will be the Red Bull that Archie will sit in, and that will be the appropriate car he needs to be in as well, but he'll start all the way back in P18. Nick rejoins the session after disconnecting as well. He was actually lagging a little bit throughout Q2, so it's a shame that he is also out, and that is one of the PSR drivers out, which may continue the misfortune of the Paradox Sim Racing team, currently really struggling so far throughout the season as Archie has then re-disconnected from the session, so hopefully we can get him back in. Sam McCabe, though, as characteristic of the St George Esports team, first person out on the track on a fresh set of soft tyres, as he's looking to get immediately out there and ready and raring to go for this Q3 session. First indications suggesting that definitely VSR are going to be the favourites for the pole position, but one as it currently stands between the two drivers, Smokey getting Q1 and Racer getting Q2, as we're just having a quick look in the chat at the moment, and we're seeing Connor Robinson in the chat saying hello, how are you doing? Seth Curry asking where Yarno is, he doesn't race here, sorry about that one. Levi, my goat, is there as is in the chat, alongside Crispy, of course, the chairman of the Rev Caterpillar fan club. We're unfortunate to hear that he's not racing tonight in the unfortunate dubious circumstances of the Japanese Grand Prix. Very interesting scenario though, as we said. Sam McCabe leading the way for St George Esports in the Haas car. Of course, usually leading from the front at the beginning of the qualifying session. Everyone with a fresh set of soft tyres available at their disposal for getting through to Q3. As I said, favourites are going to be VSR, but who's your favourite there, Brett?
Obviously VSR is for obvious selection due to them qualifying P1 in Q1 and Q2. But my money's on PSR Levi. He's a very strong driver around Singapore. We've seen that with him setting one lap on the mediums and getting through to Q2, and then his P2 lap on the softs. Don't get me wrong, Smokey and M Racer are very talented around this track, and it has shown in Q1 and Q2. But when the pressure is on, Levi, he's a real-life racer himself. I know he races Mazda cars in around lots of tracks in the UK. So I think when it comes down to a fight or flight, Levi is the driver you back in any situation, in the high-stakes situations, to get pole position.
Interesting. We open that up floor, question up to the floor as well in the chat, asking the question of who they think the favourite is going to be as well. Scyther in the chat as well saying Levi my goat. I mean, Scyther, it's a big shame that we are missing out on you tonight with your perilous performances for Paradox Sim Racing. Obviously taking a back seat tonight. Hopefully we'll see you back in the chair at some point. No disrespect, of course, to all of the other drivers out there as well. Scyther, a fantastic racer so far this season. They're definitely one of the leading frontrunners on the Xbox platform for this game. Not for Sam McCabe, though, as he spins it going underneath the bridge, loses that front wing. He is now going to have to come back to the pits in rather embarrassing circumstances as he tries to get back round and hopefully not block anyone on their lap.
Yeah, PSR Levi, he was just coming through there under the bridge section, and he just saw the AI car, well, not AI car, ghosted car of Sam McCabe, and probably needs new underwear, because, oh, there goes Sam McCabe in the back of my picture there, spins into the escape route there. Gave me a little bit of a chuckle. But Levi with a purple sector 2 on my screen, taking turns 18 and 19 very well there, applying third and fourth gear, bearing the throttle so close to the wall there, Levi, on the exit at turn 21. Maximise the exit as much as possible on turn 23, and it's a 35.823. It's the time to beat for the likes of VSR Smokey and M Racer. because it's provisional pole after one lap. FRA Placky with a 36.2. McCabe Sam heading into a pit lane. Solby for Alfa Romeo of ET8 Quantum, who is next to cross the line. Comes through turns 22 and 23 now. What can Quantum do? It looks to be a 37. It's a 37.557 for ET8 Quantum. It will be for Sol Red Bull of Bobbert. He's just finishing off his outlap, so he'll be starting very soon. It's Shazoo Venom who will be for next driver round for Team Shazoo. Coming round the final two corners now. What can Venom do? Is P5 and Q2 for him. It's P3 in Q3 at the moment with a 37.141. There is a Ferrari coming round the final two corners now. It is M Racer, the Q1 master. What can he do? It's a 1 minute 50.415. Definitely not a representative lap time for him, so he will go again. FRA Logic with a 136.324 as VSR Smokey will be for next guy to cross the line, but he's coming up to the Sec 2 timing line, and it's a 103.27 for VSR Smokey, so very good from him. He will want to be challenging Levi for pole, maybe clinching pole of Levi, but that time from Levi is better at the moment. 4 attempts clear of the Fury Racing Association driver of Placky, so just shows levels between how good Levi is compared to the rest of the field this evening. But one driver that can take the fight to him is Smokey. What can he do? It's a 35.556. What a sensational lap from VSR Smokey, and that puts him provisional pole.
Bobbert's also coming across in the next set of corners underneath into the stadium section, and of course underneath the second bridge, as he's now going to keep it nice and tidy. Try not to mount the curbs too much and put himself under some significant pressure with beaching the car as he now heads around the final couple of corners, of course, and this will be the double left-hander, the penultimate and then the final corner. CRT looking for a good result here as he goes P5 with a 1 minute 37.0, 7/10 of a second down off FRA as it stands at the moment. Levi really showing some pace, but Clone Troop and Sam McCabe, the two drivers for St. George Esports, struggling. Sam McCabe crashing out. Clone Troop ends up invalidating his lap. So in that circumstance, they've now got a little bit of pressure under themselves, and that's why they've come out early to hopefully have a couple of bites at the cherry.
Yeah, obviously good achievement for St. George's Esports. Get both cars into Q3, like we've seen at Britain and Belgium, two very strong races for them in the first and second period of this tournament. Obviously, Belgium, cast your minds back to the double podium for St. George's Esports, and obviously Britain, it was the home race for St. George's, but we tend to forget that one due to the carnage that was caused before turn one with both drivers McCabe Sam and Jam Pancakes, and FRA turned NVR Matthew, if you haven't seen in the past 24 hours in for F1 Sphere. That Matthew, he's come out of retirement again, ladies and gentlemen, and this time he has rejoined himself with his former WR manager Crispy at Novus Racing. So a good acquisition for Novus Racing. Don't get me wrong, he's one of, he was up there as one of the top 5 drivers on Xbox, the Mount Rushmore of F1 22 Xbox, if you want to call it that, alongside the likes of Otis Lawrence and Cypher, LCR Leopard as well. Those are 3 drivers that stand out as being the best drivers on this game thus far in this game cycle. But it can all change. There can be a wonder kid to come out onto the scene. It could be anyone from the top 10 here. It could be a driver like PSR Levi, VSR Smokey showing his talent as well. Obviously Smokey, a driver that you're likely to see in the PSGL Crossplay Cup that's been introduced in the past couple of weeks. Very, very interesting that as we move more towards crossplay and the PS and Xbox sides of the game aligning with each other. But I will stop my monologue for a second as McCabe Sam comes across the final corner. What can he do? It's P3. What a lap. GG, mate, for McCabe Sam. A 36.061 for the Englishman. And yeah, that's a sensational lap for Sam McCabe after his crash, losing his front wing under the bridge section on his first flying lap. Might be his only flying lap of the session, no, so if it is, it's a very good one.
Moving over to ET8 Quantum then, as he's just now approaching into the third sector on his outlap at the moment. Again, this is a particularly important time now, the next 2.5 minutes for ET8. If they can at least field a driver, take an L and lose a few points, they might be able to continue on in this tournament. However, I'm not seeing any ET8 driver joining into this tournament, and as we pointed out throughout this qualifying session, that would signal ET8's departure from this championship for the third strike in not fielding two drivers as they head around the final couple of corners. Now does Quantum in what will be a very disappointing qualifying lap as it stands, as he now comes across the line to start his lap. It'll be disappointing in regards to the potential situation for his team, but not for the driver, because he is impeccable to watch, is Quantum, as he's been pretty much throughout this entire season, in fairness, as he now heads down towards the DRS straight. It's going to be an important little corner as he clips the wall going on the inside. Looks like he's got away with that damage, but he doesn't want to keep doing that as he now heads down the straight, not straight, into the left-hander, where things are going to start to get a little bit tight and a little bit too close for comfort for some people, as he now heads into the next selection of corners, and he's looking to just stay away from the walls on this particular occasion. Looks like he's learnt his lesson on that occasion. Little miss on the apex though, so they have to open up the steering ever so slightly as he now heads towards the bridge.
Yeah, obviously at the moment, the bridge section, obviously where McCabe Sam had his incident on his first lap. But Quantum, he doesn't have the same result as what McCabe Sam did, and takes it very nicely. Will he get a somewhat marginal toe off the Ferrari? I believe that's off M Racer there. I'm not too sure, but a very good improvement through Sector 2 for Mr. Quantum. He'll be wanting to put himself into for mid to low 36s. This is his aim, just to be in and amongst the pack with a competitive lap time. We'll see how he does through turns 20 and 21. Does very well, does Quantum. Comes through turns 22 and 23. Now, what can Quantum do? It's P5 splits Placky and M Racer with a 36.271.
Yeah, not a bad lap actually from ET8 Quantum. He was absolutely needing to sneak his way through there and manages to get 5th place, but plenty of drivers still on hot laps. M Racer managing to get the fastest of anyone so far will now start his lap as he gets the fastest of anyone so far in Q2. He's now hoping to replicate that into Q3, but a very poor turn 1 actually. Looks like he mounted the curb a little bit too high and the car did not like it. Understeered ever so slightly, had to lift off, so he's lost a little bit of time already in the first sector as he now mounts the curbs and now goes down the straight, as he's looking, by the looks of things, to keep on as he now tries to push towards the corner here. And we'll see what his Sector 1 lap time was like. And as you can see, that turn 1 has not done him any favours at all. 40 thousandths of a second down on his fastest lap so far, which is the last thing that he really needed. Boberts for CRT is not going to be improving. He's invalidated as Sector 2 lap time is going to be coming in shortly for Shazoo's Venom as he's now approaching the bridge here, as it looks like one of the, I think, St. George Esports drivers, Clone Troop, has come across the line now for P4, and what has been an excellent bounce back from St. George Esports, currently both holding the second row. But though McCabe Sam has invalidated his lap, he will not be improving. Smokey goes fastest in the second sector and absolutely flying high at the moment, 16 thousandths of a second faster than his own pole position lap time as he now goes into the third sector underneath the bridge and then keeping it nice and tidy as he wants to keep it close and quartered as he now heads around the final couple of corners, and then the two left-handers as the double left-hander indeed as he comes across the line. No improvements coming across for ET8 Quantum, but here comes Smokey as he comes across the line and gets into the 1:35.4s, and it's a good lap time indeed. Levi getting a big tank slapper. That is his qualifying session certainly surely over and done with, as he certainly will call that one now as he spins, and M Racer will come across the line to make it a front row lockout for VSR, and that, my friends, is showing what VSR can do. After a good performance in Japan, they continue on for a front row lockout.
Yeah, very good there from Visceral Racing. Obviously, unfortunate to see that my prediction for pole position has not come yet again. I think I'm like 0 for 6 on pole position prediction. So I'm sorry, Levi, because it seems to be a bit of a commentator's curse, whoever I pick for pole position at the moment. But very good there from the Visceral Racing drivers. And as I pointed out at the start of the stream, I did point back to 2017, the Vettel, Raikkonen, Verstappen incident into turn one, and there's two Ferrari drivers on the front row, and I don't want lightning to strike twice because that would simply be awful for VSR and PSR Levi. But don't. It can't be ruled out. There's still a 1% chance that there might be a replication of that sort of collision, but I've been told by my sources that it is a dry race, so it'll be fine for us. Surely we won't have any incidents. It'll be a nice, flowing, clean race. But we will take you through for qualifying 3 order for you. It's a front row lockout for Visceral Racing with Smokey and M Racer P1 and P2 respectively, with Levi not being able to complete his final lap, taking P3. FRA Placky taking P4. Very good lap time in for 35s for him. McCabe Sam with his sole Q3 lap after his first lap ending in tears takes P5 for St George's with Placky's teammate Logic in P6. It's Venom in P7 for Shazoo with Clone Troop, McCabe Sam's teammate in P8. Quantum P9 for Soul Runner for ET8 with ESV Bobbers, rounding off the Q3 session in P10.
So we head through then to the race, and it's going to be a very, very intriguing scenario, of course. Now, with the the front row lockout being taken by VSR, we are in lockstead for what I think is going to be a very interesting race, of course. PSR managing to just snag P3, so they're going to have at least someone putting pressure on the team that is really starting to put pressure on them in the championship. As we take another look very briefly at those standings as we wait for the drivers to get ready for what is going to be a very interesting race indeed. We have got a really, really sort of intense race ahead of us with Paradox Sim Racing leading the way, but 261 plays 204. Visceral are really putting that pressure now on Paradox after Fury also not having the best race themselves. And Fury, of course, in 4th and 6th at the moment, could put some pressure on PSR as well. Team Shazoo are in a little bit of a tricky scenario. Piccolo was out in Q2, but Venom in 7th, with St. George Esports managing to counteract from what was a bit of a weird sort of Q3 for them. McCabe Sam did manage to get 5th, but Clone Troop got relegated to 8th in the end after a good performance from FRA and Shazoo themselves. ET8 Quantum is now the sole driver for ET8 Esports, and now fully confirms this is ET8 Esports' last race in the Paradox series, and they'll be hoping to at least round off their championship with a good performance in starting in 9th, Bobberts in 10th for CRT after not really getting his Q3 over the line to get started, really. Towards the back, of course, CRT Archie is now in the Red Bull, and he'll be sat ready and raring to go for CRT themselves in 7th after a good race in Japan. They'll be hoping to continue on with their good performance. Novus obviously up to 8th, ET8 down in 9th, and then Artemis at the back on 57 at the moment. We'll be hoping that at least a couple of safety cars come in the play of their team as they start in 15th and 16th respectively, only in front of the 2 drivers that didn't qualify in this event. Artemis are looking like they're going to struggle around here tonight, but a couple of safety cars is certainly possible at a circuit like this because it is the Singapore Grand Prix. And Brett, let's be perfectly candid, it's going to be a little bit of a high attrition race, this one, surely.
Yeah, obviously watching back the Singapore Grand Prix of just a few weeks ago, where Sergio Perez went into the darkness, channeled his inner Max Verstappen, and he cleared the field of that 5-second penalty he picked up for a safety car infringement and won the Singapore Grand Prix. And if there is a Sergio Perez in for field tonight, they'll be hoping not to pick up a 5-second penalty under safety car. But I think tonight it's going to be a race where we are going to be relying on incidents going our way because, being perfectly candid, it isn't JT and Grunty's favourite track, but I don't think Singapore is anyone's favourite track. It's one of those tracks which is really difficult on the pad or even for wheel due to just how you have to get into a free flow of, just getting used to the car for setup, being at one with yourself, making sure that mistakes don't frustrate you too much, and Yeah, if we could profit from a few collisions, not, advocating for bad racing standards, but if a few collisions go on our way today, I'll be happy because the main objective at Artemis is to survive. Because points for way that points pan out, it's very good for us if we just take a few minor points here and there. And there's some DNFs across the field. That's just the way it is sometimes. We believe the formation lap is on today, so we won't have to go straight into things. And there is the formation lap. I know that will make you very happy, Joshua. You're much more of a fan of there being a formation lap rather than going straight into the race, as it gives you a little bit of time to reel off some stats and information.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to have the little formation lap on because it allows the drivers to just get a nice sort of idea of what the circuit is going to be like. And of course, it gives us a little bit of breathing space to say, welcome aboard to the Singapore Grand Prix. This is the Paradox Series, round number 9 of this championship, before we go on to, of course, a week break ahead of us for the transfer window that is going to open up. It is a 31-lap event, as Archie is already disconnected from this session. Hopefully we can get him back in before we get going in this race. Early indications suggesting VSR are going to be on really fine form off the back of a really good Japanese Grand Prix. WR Smokey and M Racer have got a front row lockout for the team, and they are going to be wanting to hold back a force from potentially PSR Levi and his teammate Nick well down the field in 13th place. FRA also looking to try and bounce back after a poor race at Japan, but themselves are able to close down the gap a little bit further on PSR themselves with 4th and 6th for them, and of course St George Esports 5th and 8th, the fan favourite team as it stands. Shizou separated by quite a big margin as well, with 7th and 12th respectively for them, and then Artemis down at the back in 15th and 16th respectively. They'll be hoping for a safety car in a race that usually is a race of high attrition. Thank you very much to every single one of you tuning in to this race. It's going to be a feisty one indeed. Currently the chat round reading off with 17 people in what is a little bit more of a dusting off of the game, I think, as everyone's starting to get used to what is going to be a very interesting race ahead of us. It is a set of hard tyres all the way down the field, except for 2 teams running the medium tyre. Novus Racing and Mine on medium tyres, the sole driver, of course, after Rev Caterpillar's tumultuous race in Japan led them to just running 1 runner, and CRT Arche, as he did not qualify, will also start on the medium tyre. Everyone else starting on the hard, but what we expect to be a one-stop race, hard to medium or medium to hard. WR Smokey just coming around the final corner then to line himself up on the grid. M Racer alongside him on the second row. We'll be hoping for, as Brett has said a few times in this session, for not a repeat of what happened in 2017 for Ferrari. But thankfully they don't have a Max Verstappen Red Bull behind them. They've got PSR Levi coming in 3rd place alongside Plaquet on the second row of the grid. Varane did not manage to line the car up properly, so he's going to be at a disadvantage at the start as he starts in 14th. CRT Arche will round up at the back. Montoya also similarly guilty of a slight infringement of lining the car up on the grid as Archie's car parks themselves right in the place. Here we go then. The drivers are counting down the lights. It's 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4, and it's 5 lights. It's 5 lights that they are a go. The drivers, here they are, and it's a really good start down that outside line for WR Smokey. M Racer immediately trying to box in PSR Levi as they go into turn 1, and in the end it's a tag around there from PSR Levi, who's also spun out as well in that collision with VSR's M Racer as he now tries to join at the back, and then Nick almost getting chopped off. There is a slight collision, maybe ever so slightly, with RP1 there, and that's Varane and M Racer, and that little incident there, PSR and VSR are going to be having a few conversations. Amine, 5-second penalty for corner cutting and gaining an advantage in that little scenario. That is not the best place to be in as we take a look at the position so far. Sam McCabe getting a really good start towards the front, up 3 positions from 5th to 2nd. Shizou's Venom rounding up the top 3, up 4 from 7th.
Yeah, obviously we weren't advocating for a start like Verstappen, Raikkonen and Vettel, but unfortunately M Racer and PSR Levi just collecting each other into turn 2. So distraught for Levi after such a good qualifying, all coming apart at the end of Q3 and into turn 2. Just 2 cars not going into 1 there. FRA Logic and Shizou Venom 26. Venom, he'll have the inside line into the next corner, and he brakes later than Logic, hoping he doesn't force him into a wall, and that's a spin for Venom. He tried to put down the power far too early, and that is such a shame for the Shizou driver. He was up plenty of positions on lap 1. He was looking to make a Lance Stroll sort of lap 1 there, but he falls to the back of the grid. And what a horrendous start for Team Shizou, as Piccolo is in P16 as well. So Levi, he's moved up a few positions into P15, but such a poor start for Team Shizou. Smokey, though, it's an ideal start for him. Obviously, his teammate isn't there, but it's a 2.8 second lead for the VSR man.
And ET8 Quantum was actually on a really good start, but a slight mistake at the final corner has seen him in real big trouble as him and Amine getting into a collision at turn 1. It is getting incredibly feisty out there, and I'm sure that the organisers will be sort of watching this through gritted teeth here in the hope that this doesn't get too hard, because Amine really did put the pressure too hard on Quantum, I have to say, from a stewarding point of view. It didn't look particularly good on the case of the Novus driver, who of course is the sole Novus driver after losing another one through the stewarding decision. So I think from my stewarding head, he's saying he might be in trouble, but from a commentating head, it is of course extremely feisty and semi-entertaining to watch, you'd have to say. Ran up 6 positions so far as well for RP1. RP1 will be very happy with their man at the moment, up to 8th place. Nick in 9th, and then of course Emracer trying to bounce back, and he's an incredibly quick driver, so I'm expecting 10th is not going to be his position for very long. I'm expecting it might be 9th and climbing, as the drivers all hogging around the field as it stands at the moment, though. WR Smokey leading the way for VSR, and what will be a good chunk of points taken out of PSR's lead in this championship at the moment. They're only thankful that PSR I think it was PSR's Levi, wasn't it, who spun out Emracer going into turn 1. It's offering the opportunity in the end for at least PSR to potentially, ironically, do some damage control.
Yeah, I mean, it is a bit of a shame for the likes of Emracer. They are very quick drivers, Emracer and Levi. Levi's already gotten past JTO40, who's not had a very good start to the race for Artemis there. He's down 1 position in P16 and hasn't profited from the collisions that were ahead of him. But you've got to say, what a start for Fury Racing Association and St George's Esports. P2 and P5 for St George's, whilst they have the bread in an FRA sandwich with FRA Logic and FRA Placky being for ham and cheese filling. But I've spoken far too quickly, because with the aid of the drag reduction system, which has been implemented on lap 3, FRA Placky has just been passed by Mr. Clone Troop, and that makes it a 2-4 for St George's Esports. But that could all change very quickly when it comes to the next DRS zone after turns 13, I believe it is.
Just keeping a very firm eye on Amine at the moment, as Placky struggling a little bit on the curbs and beaching them ever so slightly. Amine obviously might be under the wrath of the stewards, I think, imminently, with the situation that had occurred with Quantum, who's been relegated now to 12th place as a result of that incident with him and the Novus driver. But as Archie is really struggling to get into this session, I suspect that might be one of the CRT drivers already out of this race. So while this was all happening, by the way, Venom, after making that spin, did damage his front wing, so he now has come in for a fresh front wing. And while that happened as well, of course, he unfortunately sped in the pit lane, so he's now got a 5-second penalty on his name for trouble as well, which is really bitterly disappointing stuff, to say the least. Nick, by the way, trying to close down the gap at the moment on Varane, but the DRS train really starting to open up now from 5th all the way as far down at the moment as 13th place in that little midfield battle. But so far, so good for St George Esports, as now both of those drivers starting to hoggle around FRA Logic and put the FRA driver under some serious pressure.
Yeah, FRA Logic, obviously a very good driver we have seen from past tournaments such as the Top Tier Championship, and obviously here at the Paradox Series. He is a very talented driver. PSR Nick there getting past RP1 Varane, and Amine getting past Placky as well. So DRS aiding Amine and Nick in their battles. But here's Placky, he's trying to fight it back to go round the outside. Can't break as late as Amine know on those medium compound tyres, as he is really making those mediums work. Unfortunately, he does have that 5-second penalty to his name for corner cutting and gaining position. Does HSR's Belgian hero. But unfortunately for Placky, he is dropping like a stone in the ocean. HSR Grunty there picking up our first 3-second track extension penalty of the day. Unfortunately for the Artemis man, P15 and P16 at the moment, whilst JT battles with CRT Archie. Now he is back in the session, and it's just not been JT's day thus far. He's been dropping like a stone, much like Placky. Archie leaving the session yet again, I believe, just having a glance at the Paradox Series Discord, that it just won't let him take control of his car, unfortunately. So Codemasters yet again producing an excellent game. Really well done. I'm proud of Codemasters. We were so close to having a really good evening with no issues, no glitches, no nothing. But unfortunately for Archie, might have not been the case if he did join at the start of Q1. But unfortunately for him, I don't believe his race will be able to run smoothly after quite a lot of disconnecting and reconnecting in the opening 5 laps.
In the race that's happening here, we've got Bobbers now putting Placky under some pressure. Reports are suggesting Placky has damage, does the FRA driver, and now PSR Nick also trying to get in that little mix as well as he tries to continue fighting with Bobbers, but Bobbers has managed to make the overtake, and in doing so has put a car between him and Nick, and in doing so, of course, Placky is going to struggle with that damage as he tries to progress on with this race. No visible damage on the front wing, so I'm expecting there maybe floor damage potentially to the FRA driver. If that is the case, that is going to be an extremely difficult 26 laps ahead of him. Again, just mounting the curb, and the car simply does not like it. Nick might want to put the pressure as he goes around the outside to get the switchback, but the McLaren covers it off, and that has now allowed Bobbert to gain that little bit more time, of course. But of course, now with the DRS open for Placky, he can close down the gap, and he's now carrying potentially Varane into the mix here as he's now trying maybe to make some inroads on the PSR driver, but a bit of a poor exit actually coming out of the DRS zone, and it looks like here that Bobberts is now going to lead a DRS train, falling as far down still as 13th, but Piccolo starting to breathe down the neck of Levi for 14th, 13th place respectively, as Bobbert's now starting to pull a little bit of a gap on Placky to the point where Placky is now out of the DRS zone ever so slightly. Might just hold on. I think he might have just missed it actually.
No, he does hold on.
He does hold on actually, fair enough, and he does get the DRS on this occasion, but it looks like to me Nick has got the better inroads. Is he going to make the move? He chooses not to, and we'll have to see if he actually does hold on. He's out of the DRS detection point as he comes across the DRS detection point now, and Placky's still able to just hold on, and Bobberts will be looking to try and push as hard as he can to get out of the DRS zone and hope that Placky does hold on here. But Nick is surely going to try and make this inroad here, but he's struggling with ERS here, so he might be under a little bit more pressure than you think here as Placky does cover off the inside line. Nick can't make any inroads, and here another lap now under some serious pressure as Nick again trying to put pressure on Placky, but he can't make the move. So Placky is going to hold on. As a result, he will fall out of DRS under Bobberts, and Bobberts is now going to try and pull away.
Yeah, I mean, we touched upon at the start of the race how Sergio Perez went off into the darkness and won the Singapore Grand Prix 2022 in real life, but FRA Placky here putting up a staunch defence against PSR Nick here, but it has resulted in him using quite a bit of his battery. He is 11% now on the battery, 9%, so he will start flashing the rear light on the back of his car, will start flashing red to show to Nick that he does not have enough juice to play with. But it's the same issue for Nick. He's on 14%. They're level pegging for ERS at the moment, and this is gold dust to Bobberts at the moment. His teammate Archie's left him a bit high and dry with his connection situation, so it appears he will be the sole man running for Continental Racing Team this evening. So he's flying very high in a provisional P5 at the moment, but will Nick get that launch off the final corner and send a dive into turn 1? No, he cannot. He just doesn't have the pace to overtake Placky here at the moment with the damage. And every corner, every sector that Nick doesn't get past Placky is just another corner and sector where Bobberts, he just goes off into the distance, a gap of 1.7 now.
Keeping a firm eye on Varane as well, because Varane has got plenty of ERS at his disposal here. They'll go side by side going into the corner. Will Varane potentially try to get himself in there? I would have tried, but either way he elects not to, and in the end Nick does manage to get past Placky in the end, but at what cost? He is struggling with ERS management now, and the red light blinking so heavily at the moment on the back of that Williams, which suggests to me that he's going to be under some serious pressure from Varane, who's got plenty of ERS to get past Placky, no problem at all, and I'm expecting Nick may be under some pressure going into the next corner, into the next DRS zone, I must say, as we just keep it out and see if Varane decides to make the inroads. And I would expect the racer's instinct here is to get past Plaque at the end of this particular DRS zone out of the bridge as he now puts the power down. No overtake being used though. He is electing to stay behind Plaque until the next corner. I'd have tried to make the move done here as he now locks up after a mistake, and that's now inviting VSR's M Racer into the mix there. So it looks like he got caught out by Plaque lifting off a little bit early. He has to remember, of course, if he does have that floor damage.
Yeah, I mean, for Plaque, it is just such a shame for him at the moment with the damage he is carrying, and he's just starting all these trains up. So Nick flies off into the distance at a lot quicker rate than Bobbits did, but Varane will be next on the FRA Plaque list of defence. So the Dutch Minister of Defence this time round for the Dutch McLaren Mercedes driver. Will RP1 Varane send it into turn 1? No, he does not. He elects to choose for the second DRS zone of the lap, maybe potentially taking a leaf out of Nick's book where he went for the overtake there last lap. Obviously, you would have gone for the move, Jota, but Varane electing not to. Does he get the drive out the corner that he needs? Potentially, yes. Meanwhile, up at the top of the field, FRA Logic and McCabe Sam switch positions for P2, but RP1 Varane and Plaque switch positions. We will go back up to P2 and P3 though, as FRA Logic and McCabe Sam are having one ding-dong of a battle, and here is Clone Troop on the back. He's going to go side by side to turn 10 for Singapore Sling. What a manoeuvre, the Clone Troop. It's P3 for St George's, and Logic just gets out of shape there on the exit of turn 12, and he luckily collects the car, makes sure he doesn't do a spin like McCabe Sam did at the start of Q3. But what an overtake for Clone Troop, and it's shades of Belgium for St George's, as both cars at the moment are on the podium. It's a St George's masterclass, ladies and gentlemen, here at Marina Bay.
Yeah, I mean, you have to say, to be fair to St George Esports, the chemistry between all of the drivers is just so unique. It seems to me that McCabe Sam may have been sort of lifting off, because WR Smokey, 9.5 second gap between him and Sam McCabe would suggest to me that I do know that McCabe Sam has got more pace than that. I think he may have just been sort of slowing down Logic's progress to allow Clone Troop to catch up. That then has invited this opportunity here, as it looks like McCabe Sam is going to pull Clone Troop with DRS, and of course FRA Logic is trying to defend all of that, they'll hope. Has used a bit of his ERS, and he is down to around 50%, but he's got plenty available to try and attack the two St George Esports in front, and of course he's got to try and hold back a very quick HSR Mine on the medium tyre, though those medium tyres are now going to start aging quite considerably with 8 laps gone in this race, and of course that's penalty hanging over his head is not going to help any scenario in that one. While this is all happening, Bobbits is now caught up to those, but Nick has also caught up as well, and both of those drivers struggling now with ERS. Varane's managed to get past Plaque. M Racer is going to want to try and get past him ASAP to try and recover his losses after that collision with Levi, who is 2 positions down in 12th.
Yeah, at the moment, just a battle at the back, really. Shazoo Venom has caught up a pit stop gap to AEM's JT040 and CRT Archie. Potential for JT to be carrying damage, much like Plaque, because obviously, as an Artless manager, I know JT quite well, and obviously people who have watched the Paradox series in the past 2 races have seen JT's true pace, getting a P7 and P6 in the past couple of races, and to be P16 at the moment and a pit stop behind everyone, essentially, it's not truly representative of his pace, but it's not a very strong circuit that Artemis has previously mentioned. And there is Shazoo Venom going down the inside of a chicane, not chicane, hairpin, apologies, and he gets the maneuver done on AEM JT040. So Shazoo Venom, he is 19 seconds back from the next driver in front of him, which is HSR Grunty, JT's teammate, but looks not to be Artemis's day in the sun, or should I say our night out, as we are in the midnight conditions of Marina Bay. At the moment, it is just a case of Clone Troop and McCabe Sam pulling each other along. What would be beneficial for Clone Troop in this position is just to, not touch his battery and try reclaim some energy recovery system battery power for his car, in case McCabe Sam, as the leading driver, elects to pit first out of the 2 drivers onto the medium compound, and it will leave Clone Troop on his own to defend from the likes of Logic and potentially Amine if he decides to extend his stint. so much that he's pitting after some of the hard runners. I don't think the tyres will be in mint condition. I think they'll be in like 50 pence pieces if Amine was to go aboard with the hard runners due to the nature of this circuit. I'm not overly too sure when we will see the likes of Amine pit from his medium tyres. I mean, the suggestion for me would be around lap 13, lap 14 for the medium, so that you have 17 laps on the hard tyres, and obviously a much more durable race tyre are for hard tyres. That's just how it works on this game, obviously, and in real life. But for the moment, for Clone Troop and McCabe Sam, it's just running order, nice and smooth, like clockwork for St George's Esports.
Yeah, just keeping an eye on Novus's Amine with that medium tyre at the moment. Looks to me as if the medium tyres are actually holding up quite well at the moment. No immediate blistering that I can see on either of the front tyres, and the rear tyres, a slight blistering maybe on the rear right. We would expect the rear right to be the tyre that gets the most hammer out of all of them, and there is a slight blister now starting to open up on the end of that tyre, which is going to harm his performance, putting down the throttle going out of right-hand turns, and that right-hand turn, the key one of course being the DRS zone that he's just come out of. So it's going to be interesting to see sort of how he manages that one, because of course the outside of the tyre is the bit that's going to be taking the most strain through all of the corners, as JTO Forte getting into a battle of the ghost of CRT Archie at the moment, down in 17th. With 20 laps to go in this race. Smokey already pulling an 11-second gap. He wasn't gaining as much time on McCabe Sam as he was when they were battling with FRA Logic, but of course both of the Haas drivers are pulling a DRS train at the moment, but Logic starting to lose a little bit of time here to the two Haas boys in front.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a sensational performance from VSR Smokey thus far this evening, obviously benefiting quite a lot from the turn 2 collision between PSR Levi and M Racer. M Racer just stuck behind FRA Placky, who is obviously carrying that damage and has been a pain to a lot of drivers that have tried to overtake him. For Dutch Minister of Defence is what we are labelling him at the moment. But P9 for Placky at the moment. M Racer, he will want to get past and try and make a positive from a negative in this race thus far. Activating DRS, he's got nearly half his battery to play with, 47%, 48% coming into turn 1, but a move not being able to be done at the moment, just due to him being 0.8 of a second behind Mr. Placky.
Just keeping a firm eye on what's happening with Logic at the moment, as well as he's managed to find a little bit of time in the first sector versus Clone Troopers. He's managed to sort of keep the pressure on now, and actually Amine started to struggle a little bit of pressure with the medium tyre. As I said, the rear right is what gets the most hammer, as we now just take another look off board at the moment, and looks like that blister is still there, and it's actually starting to get a little bit deeper actually on the outside of that tyre. But now the rear left tyre also starting to open up with a blister, so now this is where we'll start to see the medium tyres really fall off here. But because of the DRS trade, he's able potentially to extend this medium stint and really push on the hard tyre towards the sort of middle part of this race, which is offering opportunities maybe to Amine. The only issue is, of course, being in a DRS train, he's obviously going to be pulling the cars behind him, and that's time he's only going to lose in the pit lane, of course. And of course, if indeed he ends up pitting, he may end up falling in a bit of a position where he may end up encountering traffic as the other drivers come off of the hard and onto the medium. So going to be interesting to see how that one sort of develops in that one. And while this is all happening, by the way, the DRS train from 9th down as far as 13th has now begun. Piccolo has got on the back of the potentially guilty driver of lap number 1, turn number 2 of PSR Levi.
Yeah, just over time for gaps starting to form for mini DRS trains. Beginning, there's a yellow flag in sector 3. That is for HSR Grunty for Artemis driver in P15 there. ETA Quantum into pits, and he's making a real hash of it, trying to get back round as Grunty. Will he come into pits to change his wing? Yes, he does. He comes into a pit lane to get off those hard tyres. Doesn't speed into the pit lane. But with two drivers pitting there, Quantum, he was actually getting his wing changed there. So a shame for ETA Quantum there, as I believe No, it's just a regular stop for Grunty onto the medium compounder tyres. So obviously his hard tyres were cooked, and he will feed back out into last place, unfortunately, for the AEM man. But back up to the mini DRS trains, not much overly going on. VSR Smokies just gapping McCabe Sam more and more per lap, half a second a lap since lap 11, where he was 11.4 seconds ahead, I believe, at the end of lap 11. Now it's 12.4, so he's really showing his pace. It's with this man. This is like watching an Otis Lawrence performance. Otis Lawrence, he's not a driver that participates in the Paradox Series due to him having other events on a Thursday evening, and I guess it's sort of a good thing, because we talk about how how many unique winners and pole sitters we've had in this tournament as Amine heads into pit lane where he'll serve his 5-second penalty. I much prefer a tournament where surprise winners are much more apparent, rather than sort of a tournament where you have a clear favourite going into things. Personally, I'm not sure whether you share the same viewpoint as me, but that's just the way I personally see it in terms of racing.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, it's an open conversation when you talk about that particular argument, in fairness. I think it's going to be interesting to see how, that will develop, I think. I'm just keeping a firm eye, apologies, on the situation with the two Haas runners at the moment, in second and third place. They're looking fairly sharp out there at the moment, but they're still not able to shake off Logic. Now, Bobberts is under a little bit of pressure here, because he really needs to get the DRS of Logic here, so this is going to be the opportunity knocked almost now for the two Haas runners, who really need to make some inroads on FRA Logic, who's still putting that pressure on both St. George Esports drivers. And while this is all happening, Clone Troop has actually left the DRS territory of McCabe Sam on that last lap, so I think McCabe Sam's probably going to slow down and allow the Haas driver to catch back up, as they now keep an eye out on Bobberts, who does manage to get in the DRS territory of Logic. Of course, that gap opening up after Amine pitted onto a set of hard tyres. He's got a 6-second bit of clean air to Venom at the moment, who's going to be pitting for his second stop of the race. And while this is all happening, by the way, those that have elected to pit now for a set of medium tyres are almost certainly going to be doing a 2-stop. Grunty comes into after just coming onto the set of medium tyres, and I am expecting surely it is either going to be another set of medium tyres or maybe a hard tyre now to the end of this race. Logic now comes into the pits now as he's trying to commit to the undercut versus the two Haas runners, and I'm expecting now then therefore McCabe Sam will be coming in at the end of this lap, as it will be now another set of medium tyres, and that will be a 16-lap stint to the end. That's going to be a bold call, 16 laps on a set of medium tyres, when Amine was struggling after just 13 laps on a set of mediums. And I'm expecting this is a bit of an early call, and I think they may struggle towards the end,
Yeah, I don't see them surviving, unfortunately, those medium tyres. We saw the drop-off at around lap 9-10 for Amine begin. It'll be interesting to see what strategies are taken here, because a lot of drivers here could be banking on a very late safety car to try and nurse these tyres home somehow. They'll want virtual safety cars, they'll want safety cars, they'll want whatever is out there just to, ensure that their tyres will have a speck of life on them, a speck of rubber come the end of the race. But I just don't see those medium tyres lasting, unfortunately. Amine, he's probably in for best position out of the lot for the moment, because he went on that alternating strategy, and now he's got, for hards, obviously, they weren't very good come lap 13-14, but they'll be in a much better position should there be a late safety car, and, in an example of where people cannot pit due to just wherever they are on the track. So, Amine, he'll have the best tyre life available for him, but not the same pace as Clone Troop enters the pit lane now. For he was losing quite a few positions there due to an incident, but no, he is coming into a pit lane for St. George's Esports, a surprising one, considering he was running behind his teammate McCabe Sam. But it's a good stop onto the mediums for Clone Troop, and he will aim to come out ahead of FRA Logic, but it might be tight. there could have been a potential undercut here for FRA Logic, and it has been successful for the FRA driver as he drives off into the distance, and that's a brilliant outlap from FRA Logic, and he goes into PA, provisionally P3.
Yeah, the undercut works an absolute treat. It's a very powerful tool around here, and I think unfortunately for Clone Troop, that undercut was inevitably going to be a problem for him, and now this is where FRA Logic might be under some serious sort of pace here versus McCabe Sam, because McCabe Sam wasn't too far ahead of Clone Troop. Now Clone Troop will be disappointed that he's come out nearly 3 seconds back off of the McLaren, and Sam McCabe was only a second in front of Clone Troop, so we're expecting that surely Logic is going to end up being 2.5 seconds in front of McCabe Sam, but in that Clone Troop may end up committing to the undercut himself on his teammate McCabe Sam, who has effectively helped Clone Troop around the circuit to get into the position that he's in. So if anything, McCabe Sam has massively sort of been underdone by not just FRA Logic but his teammate in that, and to be fair to Clone Troop, he needed to do it, otherwise he'd have ended up being massively undercut by Logic. So no surprises, McCabe Sam is in, but I'm expecting at least a 2.5 second undercut potentially versus FRA Logic. Nick and Varan stay out as WR Smokey is also now in for a fresh set of medium tyres. He's just leaving the pit lane as RP1 Montoya stays out on the set of hard tyres, and he'll come out in front of WR Smokey, as will Piccolo. There's McCabe Sam then in for the set of medium tyres right at the end of the pit lane. Here's then FRA Logic as he's now coming around the final corner, setting the fastest lap of this race as well, just to add insult to injury to McCabe Sam, who gets a massive undercut here as Clone Troop also coming across, and he also undercuts his teammate as well. So again, that undercut is incredibly powerful around here, so much so the man that was helping his teammate to even get into that battle with FRA Logic is now massively paid the price for it.
Yeah, I mean, sensational undercut and sensational team strategy played by the Fury Racing Association. Obviously one of the best, if not the best team on Xbox in terms of team play and strategies, so they are really benefiting this evening from their actions to choose to undercut Mr. Logic. Obviously FRA Placky, he might still be carrying that underfloor damage, unfortunately for him, but he is still ahead of M Racer, so it's been a horrendous race for M Racer at the moment, obviously getting collected by PSR Levine to turn 2 of lap 1, and then since then he's tried to make inroads on the cars ahead, but he's been met by the blockade of FRA Placky, and he's been put in a very good defensive performance thus far. As for FRA driver, he's been making the most out of what isn't going to be his day, but for Placky, he's definitely had some good racing battles with a lot of drivers. The likes of Nick, especially, comes straight away. But interesting strategy here from Roleplay One, really extending those hard tyres. And I don't really want to speak it to existence because it's probably impossible that it will happen. Are they trying for unforeseen, for incredible hard soft strategy?
Hard soft will be difficult. They've got to take the hard tyres at least another 10 laps if they want to try and get the soft tyre on there. I'm expecting that they're probably waiting for an inevitable safety car at some point. And to be fair, it is possible. We've got a bunch of drivers all really racing quite hard. Bobbitts and McCabe Sam are racing quite well at the moment. Now, McCabe Sam already struggling with ERS management, but so is Bobbitts, as he may go for the dive going into the next corner, but in the end electing not to, as Placky and M Racer getting into a little bit of a scuffle themselves, as M Racer's forced off of the track by the McLaren, but the McLaren is saying that this is my position and you're going to have to pay the price. But unfortunately, that has sort of fallen right on deaf ears, as the McLaren holds on to P11 in the end. Well, while this is all happening, by the way, a very brief well done and a very brief sort of conversation about what's happening in the F1 esports race at the moment live in Mexico. As it stands, the Xbox hero himself, Thomas Ronhart, in 3rd place, as he's trying to battle Frederick Rasmussen at the moment in 4th, as in around Mexico at the moment, who's actually falling around about 0.4 of a second down, but has a penalty. So a really good position for Thomas Ronhart at the moment in the F1 esports, as we send here our best wishes. And a big well done as well from a fantastic race yesterday, as well, as he gets a race victory in Monza. As we're just having a look as PSR Nick finally comes in off of the hard tyre. Montoya also coming in as well. Varan stays out. Smokey now up to P2 in that one, as Clone Trooper's made a mistake on his own accord. As he goes through the final corner, ends up losing the rear ever so slightly, and Bobbers is able to catch up in that one. I think it's because he's trying to put the pressure on making sure that he gets the undercut done on those on the hard tyre, as he has managed to do it, but not done it very cleanly.
A driver that I just want to say bravo to. Bravo, HSR Amine. He's overtaken McCabe Sam. The guy that was in P2 has been overtaken by the guy that was on the alternate strategy, had a 5-second penalty to his name, and was in P5 when he pitted off his medium tyres. So HSR Amine, he's definitely a driver that is still to watch, as he is a second behind PSR Nick at the moment. McCabe Sam, he's getting overtaken by F-Ray Plackey here, as well as Racer. Has McCabe Sam picked up damage here somewhere, as Quantum, he looks to get an overtake done round the outside here of McCabe Sam, and he's falling like a stone in the ocean, because McCabe Sam, he's getting overtaken here, there and everywhere. PSR Levi's trying to be opportunistic, but it hasn't worked. McCabe Sam, he's in for wall, and he's lost his front wing, much like in Q3, and it's a safety car. It's a safety car due to the front wing debris on the track, and that is so unfortunate for McCabe Sam. He picked up damage somewhere because he was falling so quickly down the grid, and him and Levi just having a little touch there. Nothing too dangerous in terms of racecraft, but it just got McCabe Sam all out of sorts, and just going into the wall has absolutely annihilated his front wing, left for debris on the track, and that from the in-game stewards has made it appropriate for a full safety car.
Varane very happy indeed in that one, though, because now he's on a set of hard tyres that are now, well, obviously at the end of their life, but now he's going to be able to make a massive undercut on everyone, because it's half the amount of time that he would have spent. Obviously, it's a set of medium tyres to the end of this race, but RP1 are suddenly in for some big points here. Clone Troop going around the corner is going to overtake the RP1 driver. Bobberts, though, is at risk of potentially losing P4 here as he now comes out of the pit lane, does Varane. Bobberts is going to hope that he can stay in front, as he just manages to do so. So Paradox will lose the position here as he tries to go alongside RP1, but in the end it's not going to work. RP1 Varane, what a position to be in. Straight up to P5 within a very lonely position at one point. He's now racing for a potential victory alongside the likes of Bobberts, Clone Troop and Logic, but Smokey, who was around 10 seconds in front, is now going to be gritting his teeth. He's got to start racing again.
Yeah, I mean, for the likes of McCabe Sam as well, McCabe Sam, JTO4, 5-second penalty into the pit lane. A driver that didn't have a penalty to his name has picked up one. He was on for RP1 Varane strategy, and it's unfortunate for him. He gets a replacement front wing as well, so I guess that confirms what some of us were thinking, in that he was carrying damage throughout that whole first stint, and yeah, so unfortunate for Artemis tonight, as Grunty, his teammate, comes into pit lane as well. So both Artemis drivers, they're not at risk of getting lapped in this Grand Prix, and this safety car will help them get back into race, but they will be the only two guys carrying penalties, with a 5-second penalty for JT and a 6-second penalty for track excursions for Grunty. So it really isn't Artemis' night tonight. Team Shazoo in P13 and 14 at the moment, they'll want to make some inroads, and it's what we talked about in terms of getting the mediums to survive until the end of a race. An extended 3-4 laps under the safety car potentially, it will help those drivers on the medium tyres so much. RP1 Varane as well, I mean, he could be an underdog for a potential podium, if not better. But the pace of Clone Troop and F-Ray Logic, especially since Logic's undercut has been sensational. PSR Nick is entering. No, it's Amine that's entering the pit lane there for Novus Racing. So he's obviously choosing it's better to, you know, go onto the mediums, lose track position in the short term, and, you know, really extend in for long run after this safety car comes in. It's for medium compounded tyres. He'll slot out into P14 behind for two Team Shazoo drivers of Piccolo and Venom respectively. And for Novus Racing, when he's the only car out here tonight, it's a huge gamble to pit your driver again onto a fresh set of mediums, I feel.
I mean, to be honest with you, I wouldn't have lost track position in that particular scenario, but nonetheless, that's what he's elected to do. Sam McCabe, no surprises, coming to get off of the hard tyre now, and he's going to just have to try and scrap for the final sets of points from 15th upwards. Very quick update on what's happening as well. If you are tuning into the this race and missing out on the F1 Esports action, by the way, Frederick Rasmussen has just put out there why he can't race in the specific way, shall we say. He's bit of a dive down the inside line and almost taking out Ron Haar straight into a wall, but he has a time penalty to his name, and rightfully so. So Ron Haar hopefully should hold on to a podium, and what will be a double podium stint as well for Ron Haar. What a great performance from him as a commentator over his races as well. It's been absolutely fascinating to see how he's grown in the F1 Esports universe. Yono Otmi is just about to come across the line to win the Mexican Grand Prix in that little event, but in the end Ron Haar should take the final podium position, and what has been an absolutely excellent performance, I think, from the Dutchman. Really, really happy to see a grand driver like him in the Xbox universe grow and become, someone who's semi-professional, if you will, in the F1 Esports universe. There's plenty of drivers out here who are all going to be looking to follow in Ron Haar's footsteps. Otis Lawrence certainly is going to be one of those drivers. Who is going to be the next star is going to be the question. It could be any one of these 18.
It could even be one of us. I mean, don't put it out for window yet. We could become esports professionals. It might take a bit longer for me than it would you, but you never know. The hope can never die in the F1 esports community. We're obviously blessed to be commentating over 18 very talented drivers this evening in the Paradox Series tournament. And as we will go for one more lap under the safety car, I believe the safety car will come in this lap. Unsure whether JT040 will pit here to get rid of his time penalty. Yes, he does. It's a smart decision from JT to get off those medium, to pit again onto another set of medium tyres which weren't overly worn, and just to get... it's for softs. He's gambling on the softs, ladies and gentlemen. They might be like snooker balls come the end of the race. They might be like a 50p piece. But it's a very bold call from the Artemis driver, who will have no penalties come the end of it. And interesting there, Clone Troop, 1.9 seconds away from FRA Logic. I'm not sure what constitutes as 10 cars distance, but I feel like 1.9 seconds might be pushing for boundaries a little bit from Clone Troop. But as long as he doesn't, do this in erratic behaviour, should we say, and that he's obviously making for cars behind him there being aware as well. But yeah, just caught me off guard a little bit there. We do have a driver gambling on for soft, so it isn't everyone on mediums. We do have a gambler on those soft tyres, but on the underbrace. For Jade. Oh, Clone Troop! He's just gone into a wall at the exit for hairpin. I'm unsure if he's picked up damage there, but looks like he just drove into the wall. For safety cars in this lap, for AEM drivers will have to get their foot down to get to the back for grid to get close to McCabe Sam, who's had an absolute stinker. Obviously, he caused for safety car with his front wing going. But as VSR Smokey becomes the de facto safety car, we are getting ready to go here. Going from lap 22 into lap 23 around Marina Bay. This is the Singapore Grand Prix in the Paradox Series. If you're a first-time viewer, where the hell have you been all this time? Make sure to give us a subscribe on YouTube. It really helps us a lot. McCabe Sam, I don't know what's going on here. JT040, McCabe Sam and CRT Archie switching positions on the safety car. I think McCabe Sam's got an illegal overtake here somehow. So JT profits a position, but as Smokey, he gets ready to go here. He's just putting down a foot. He's putting foot to the floor now. I couldn't get my words out, but WR Smokey, VSL Smokey, he is gone, and he has left FRA Logic for dust. With Clone Troop, he's breathing right down the neck of Clone Troop. Clone Troop breathing down the neck of Logic, should I say, but no move done into turn one, but a 1.2 second gap as Quantum, he is dropping position instantly, and I believe he's been an unfortunate recipient of a collision into turn one, much like Levi and Ben Racer at the start of the race. So unfortunate for the sole ET8 driver in their final race in the Paradox Series. Quantum, he's down in last place here. JT getting the move done on CRT Archie, so getting those softs fired up nice and early. He's behind Amine now, who was P5, and he was doing brilliantly on those on those hard tyres with his alternate strategy, with his undercut, and for the likes of Amine and JT, Levi and Emracer, they are drivers that want to profit, but PSR Nick with a 3-second time penalty. That will hurt him so much with so many drivers not having penalties at the moment. It will drop down the field so much come the end of the race should the penalty situation remain like this. Meanwhile, Grunty getting past Archie there is the Artemis driver. JT having a poor exit there, gets lets McCabe Sam through there. So interesting strategy from the Artemis driver down at the back, but at the front it is all the same. Smokey leads by 2.4 seconds from Logic from Clone Troop.
Yeah, following on from that, Bobberts from Varane and Nick and Placky with Emracer trying to counteract from a pretty poor start, of course, after that collision with Levi, who's just tucking in behind him in P9. Montoya rounding out the top 10. Both Shazoo drivers outside of the top 10 in for some points in 11th and 12th, respectively, though. And then, of course, Clone Troopers now disconnected from the session, which is looking like to me that we are going to continue on with potentially some faults with people's internet connections. As a result, PSR Nick is trying to fight with Varane for P4 at the moment, and Varane is very happy to stay down that inside line, but Nick has got that using the ERS and cuts off Varane going into the corner. Clone Troop immediately connects, but he's now down as far as 7th place. St. George Esports, and their race goes from bad to worse. Varane trying to get in the mix, but in the elects not to challenge Nick too hard on that occasion because he's fighting at the moment with Placky, of course, who's got that floor damage and trying to hold on. Emracer just tucking in behind at the moment as he tries to counteract from an attack from Montoya, as Clone Troop does manage to reconnect into the session in P8.
Yeah, and one thing that it did do whilst Clone Troop was out of session was burn his battery into smithereens. The drivers around him, Emracer 84% of the battery, RP1 Montoya 62%, Clone Troop 40%. So he doesn't have as much battery power as the guys around him, but when DRS gets activated on the start of lap 25, he will be looking to do whatever he can. Here's the Bobbert. What are you doing, Noam? Well, Noam's joined the session, which is odd because A, he's a driver for ET, and B, ET aren't in this tournament, but there he goes. I think he's realised his mistake and left the session almost immediately. And Clone Troop has left again, so connection issues for Clone Troop. He's clearly got the same issues as what CRT Archie has had this evening. And I will quickly get an invite back into the lobby. There we are. But goes bad to worse for what a race St. George's Esports were having. It's gone from, a dream to a disaster here at Marina Bay when PSR Levi as well. Very poor, getting a 3-second penalty there. And it's not been Paradox's night either, on a night when they needed to bounce back from Visceral Racing's charge to the front. It's just not worked for them with these penalties that they're carrying now. And Shazoo Piccolo down the inside. What a move by the Shazoo driver. Venom's going to go round the outside into the right-hander. And he tries to get the position done. And Shazoo, that is sensational. What a move from Shazoo Piccolo. And Venom's just gone one better by overtaking Levi there. Absolutely brilliant from Team Shazoo.
And while that's all happening, we've been looking at what's happening at the action towards the front as Bobberts is trying to hold on for CRT to get their podium position, but unfortunately gets overtaken by Nick in a cracking switchback coming out of the DRS detection point, and in doing so Placky has stuck his car in there and managed to overtake Bobberts as well. He's now relegated to P5, so Nick holds on for P3, but the time penalty on his head is going to obviously affect this one, and FRA could end up getting some really big points in that championship versus PSR. And of course WOR Smokey for VSR rather is going to be racing really nicely to take the victory for VSR to close down the points even further on PSR. So though Nick is definitely the damage limitator in this one, with Levi all the way as far down as P11 at the moment, that time penalty could become a detrimental effect to the amount of points that PSR get in the end. It's all about what this train does. Does the train stick and keep in close proximity of PSR Nick, or does PSR Nick start to bridge the gap between the rest of them? Varane is trying to get close to Bobbitz at the moment, but obviously seizing them from the mistake that had occurred for him to lose 2 positions. He doesn't want to lose another couple, because M-Racer is also in very close proximity at the moment in this little battle, but he's actually racing closer with Montoya at the moment, the other RP1 driver who's going to be on for some big points here, our roleplay 1, but Bobbitz in the end holding on for P5.
Yeah, at the moment, positions being traded between McCabe Sam and PSR Levi. So Levi dropping more positions there. He got overtaken by HR Mine as well, somewhere along the line. So it begs the question whether Levi is carrying any damage, or whether he really is just out of sync, whether he just isn't into that groove that he was in qualifying. It just went it was so good for Levi. He was, P2 and Q2, then he missed out on his lap in Q3. What has happened?
M-Racer getting a bit of a tank slap. It looks like he's collided ever so slightly into the back of Varane. As there's Venom going for the late lunge down the outside line, and in the end that wasn't going to work. He gets re-overtaken again by M-Racer, and Montoya stays in P9, and Shazua trying to categorise their race as at least somewhat semi-raceable. Now into 9th and 10th, wants to get some more points on the board if they can in their little battle, of course, trying to battle out with the likes of VSR, FRA, and of course PSR. But at the moment it's been a poor race, and it's only going to be a scraps of points for it stands for the Mercedes outfit. Bobbitz still holding off from the attack from Varane at the moment, but losing time, and actually out of the DRS now of Plaque means that he's now going to be vulnerable to an attack from Varane going into turn 1, and roleplayer 1 now up to P5, but immediately going to be under the cosh here as they head down towards the straight into turn 5. Of course, the DRS will now fall in the favour of ESV's Bobbitz for CRT as they now go down into the DRS detection point. ERS available only ever so slightly, but definitely DRS available for Bobbitz as he now makes a move. He's going to have to go around the outside for this one to work. Varane may make the late breaker to try and hold on as they're still side by side going into the next corner, and surely it's going to be advantage Bobbitz into the corner. They collide ever so slightly. Here comes M-Racer for VSR as he gets cut off immediately by a roleplayer 1's Varane. Venom also racing very well with Montoya at the moment. Montoya trying to put the pressure on the Shazoo driver now after getting overtaken, as he's now up to 8th place and Montoya down to 9th.
Yeah, another part of an overtaken collection of Shazoo Venom this evening. P8 for him will bring him 10 points come the end of the race due to the nature of the Paradox Series' scoring system. But RP1 Varane on its debut, might I add, in the Paradox Series, coming in as an emergency transfer. Yeah, it would be a sensational overtake if it comes off, but it doesn't look as though it will. Bobbitz, the more experienced driver in the Paradox Series, and that is showing. Meanwhile, PSR Nick is gapped, Placky, and then some. It's a 4.9 gap between the PSR man and the Dutchman. Or Fury Racing Association, as I just lose my voice a little bit there, but it's nothing too bad for me to deal with. Varane, he is trying to deal with getting past the ESV Bobbitz. Bobbitz breaking a little bit late into turn 1, getting a little bit out of sorts, but Varane...
Oh, no!
No, that is such a shame for Varane, as he was on for such a good debut in the Paradox Series, and it's just all gone wrong, and he's lost his wing as well, so he will have to pit for a new front wing. I feel so bad for Varane because it was from hero to absolute zero. P17, it doesn't warrant you with a point in the Paradox Series, so I'm speechless. I'm gutted for Varane.
Yeah, but good for him as well, because he was on for some good points for RP1 on his debut, but unfortunately debutant showing his unfortunate rookie status, now down to 17th without a front wing. That is his now race over and done with. Lap 28 of 31, 3 laps to go. Immediate indications to suggest that WR Smokey is going to continue on with his fine form in this championship. PSR Nick has got that time penalty to his name with 3 seconds, but of course Placky's 6 seconds behind. It's not going to affect him, so it's all about whether he can overtake Logic and find 3 seconds, which is obviously a lot more of a tougher ask than you think, as Roleplayer One's Montoya under some serious pressure as he's losing time and losing positions left, right and centre, because he has now lost a front wing as well.
Ooh.
So now both Roleplayer One drivers who are on for some really, really good points here in the space of one lap now has nothing at all. Really disappointing stuff. That now invites Shazoo up to 7th and 8th place respectively. VSR's M Racer is very happy to be in 6th place as he's now trying to challenge Bobberts for 5th.
Yeah, so unfortunate for Roleplay One. They were on for such a good result this evening with Montoya and Varane, and it's just gone from them, slipped through their fingers like quicksand. And it's such a shame for Roleplay One. They will jump onto the soft compounder tyres, try and make what they can of it. They won't receive the fastest lap point as points go from P1 down to P15 in the Paradox Series. Bobberts and M Racer, they're battling side by side at the moment. Who will come out on top?
Gotta give that back.
Retires.
Oh no! Spun out.
Bobberts has spun and he's lost his wing as well.
No, I'm sorry. I am sorry. No, M Racer should have really given that position back straight away. He went off of the circuit to complete the overtake and still continued the pressure on the Red Bull. And I'm not sure if the Red Bull got tugged, perhaps by one of the other drivers, maybe Shazoo's Venom. But in doing so, it's ended up with him now with no front wing at all, and he will now be out of the points as well. And what was some really, really needed points of CRT have now slipped through the fingers, as now we're starting to see maybe some infringements when it comes to the expectations of the drivers' standards on the circuit. M Racer now up to 5th place as he tries to earn as many points as he can for VSR in their championship race with PSR, who have got PSR Nick still in 3rd place, and they will be by far the sort of damage limiter on this one. But FRA and VSR are earning some big points tonight. Shazoo also now earning some good points as well in 6th and 7th. And look at Novus as well with Amine on his own, 8th place respectively. He's still battling with the St. George Esports team in 9th and 10th, but they are struggling to keep up with Amine at the moment. So it is all about what's going to be happening in that championship as a result. Paradox could be falling off of the top step as here if they keep on with these really poor performances, not just in TPS but across the esports world as well.
Yeah, for VSR at the moment, they get 32 points with the win of Smokey, and for P5, it will warrant them 16 points as well. So 48 points being tallied up here if the race was to end now. But with PSR Nick in P3 at the moment, trying to overtake P2 man of Logic. What can he do? They're so close to each other, coming through the Singapore sling and coming up to the hairpin now. Will Nick launch one? Danny inside, it'd be suicide for him to do that if he was, but could be a potential for a switchback if he can get the power down nice and early, uses his battery, and if he feels like he can get that penalty removed, why not battle for position? But if he does have more than 3 warnings, as he has a little bit of a drift coming out of, I believe that is turn 14, so well held from Nick, very well held from him. But we are on for penultimate lap, coming into the final lap as Bobberts and Archie, for 2 CRT guys, swap positions with each other. It's been a horrendous race for Levi as well, as he drops off the back of ET8 Quantum, so such a shame for him. But we go on to the final lap now. He had a safety car where he had that 12-second lead cut down to nothing, but he is built back up again. What a performance from VSR Smokey tonight, pending a very good Sector 2 and Sector 3, allowing him to win this race. It would be such a shame if he was to lose it. But we go through to the DRS zone for the battle for P2 on track between PSR Nick and FRA Logic. Logic defends the inside line. Will Nick go around the outside? No, he attempts to cut back in. Archie gets disqualified for getting failed. What?
That's his go. To be fair, that's his ghost car, and I don't think he would have even qualified anyway, so it makes no difference and no odds in that particular argument. So I think in essence, he really wasn't in this race at all, as we're just keeping an eye on what's happening with Nick, actually. He's got that 3-second penalty, so whatever happens, I'm expecting anyway that he'll finish in P3, because he's over 8.5 seconds in front of Plaque, in fairness, as Varane gets the fastest lap of this race in unfortunate circumstances. Logic has made a mistake, but Nick has given the position up, I think. I'm not sure what's going on in that one, but either way, Nick stays in P3 as Venom now gets a 3-second time penalty for his troubles, and that is detrimental for Shazoo, Shizou, because there's a bunch of drivers all very close to him behind at the moment. As we just switch back over to WR Smokey, the VSR driver, never really looked in doubt, didn't he? He was absolutely flying high throughout this tournament and throughout this particular race. He will be taking a very famous victory for VSR as they win the Singapore Grand Prix, and he'll be winning with some big points for VSR in their battle with PSR. FRA Logic will finish in the end in second, with PSR Nick with that 3-second penalty, ending in third place in what is a damage limitation race for PSR. He really needed that. Palaki finishes in fourth, M Racer finishes in fifth, but Venom's 3-second time penalty falls him to ninth of all places. Clone Troop finishes in 10th, and HSR Grunty gets some really well needed points in what looked like to be a very unlikely circumstance for Grunty to get points for Artemis. They finishes in 12th place, and JTO 40 will be getting points in the end as well for Artemis in 15th place respectively. Bobberts finishing very low down in 14th place.
Yeah, P15 getting points, so I can legally put on for Twitter, it's a double points finish for Artemis this evening. But it's so unfortunate as RP1 Varane crosses for line now. Interesting track for this to come across the line, but yeah, it was a race that really just went to a little bit of a demolition derby come the end of it, with the two RP1 drivers losing their wings, and obviously McCabe Sam's wing loss causing a safety car. But yeah, incredible performance from VSR Smokey today, a class apart from the rest of the field. Obviously questions will be asked of what if, of whether M Racer and Levi would have kept him competitive for the whole race, as he does that celebration. We ignore his celebration on the podium because that's the one that annoys me the most. But we will run you through the grid for one final for results order, should I say, not for grid, for the final time this evening. VSR Smokey takes the win by 7.8 seconds in a delightful win for Visceral Racing, with FRA Logic picking up a very well-deserved P2 after his amazing undercut on the likes of McCabe Sam and Clone Troop. PSR Nick getting P3 for Paradox there, doing very well, put his foot down after getting that penalty, very Sergio Perez-esque. FRA Placky holding damage for what we believe to be the whole of the race. P4 for him, doesn't change a position, doesn't go up or down. Very well done for Placky, that's a much deserved P4 for him. M Racer getting P5 in the end, could have been something better if he wasn't involved in that lap 1 collision. Piccolo taking P6 for Shizou, a very good performance from the Frenchman this evening, with Amine getting some luck that he richly deserves. P7 there for Novus. McCabe Sam, what could have been as well, he was doing so good for the most part in P8. Shizou Venom in P9 with his teammate Clone Troop in P10. Quantum takes P11 with Grunty taking P12. PSR Lever with another what-if performance in P13. ESV Bobberts taking P14, and rounding off the points for Artemis, it's JTO 40.
Yeah, really good race in the end for that one. It was one of those races that I think sort of needed that safety car to really inject a little bit of life into it, and in the end never really phased the VSR's WR Smokey, who takes the victory here tonight, and of course closes down the gap on LCR Leopard, second overall in the Drivers' Championship. And with LCR Leopard not racing tonight, he'll be very happy indeed to be taking that good chunk of points. We are now heading on a week break, and I think it's a very well-deserved week break before we have our 5-week stint to the end of this championship. So we are going to be heading into the transfer window period, where the drivers will have all of their sort of positions swapped around within the teams, and of course potentially another 10th team coming with ET8's departure. We return in a couple of weeks' time in Melbourne, Australia. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye for now.
Bye.